Hello, this is Father Fred here again today, and we have something that is very interesting. We're going to be talking about the North and the South. To begin with, Israelites had one king. They had King Saul, one united kingdom. He got killed. King David, one united kingdom. His son, King Solomon, one united kingdom. But it started going down with him because he put taxes and he did a lot of things that was disturbing the people. And then he had a son named Rehoboam, and he just disrupted everything. So to begin with, we had one nation with one story. But with King Rehoboam, people decided they couldn't stay with him. So they split. 10 of those tribes went north, and 2 stayed south. Benjamin and Judah stayed in the south. The other 10 just went their own way. Now, when they went their own way, when they had that one story, then when they went their other way, they embellished their story one way in the south. They embellished theirs another way in the north. So we start out with one story, but we go to 2. And we're going to get to see that very plainly today. In chapter 26, I would like to ask you to do this. Get, if you have, 2 Bibles. One to chapter 20 of Genesis, and one to chapter 26 of Genesis. If you have 2 Bibles. If you don't, get a bookmark. If you can, get a bookmark. Put one at chapter 20 and one at chapter 26, so you can just flip back and forth with it, and that should work fine too. But it'd be better if you had 2. Okay, now here's the setting. Here's what we're going to have. I'll just start with, let's open your Bible right now to chapter 26. Genesis, chapter 26. And be sure if you can flip to chapter 22, also to chapter 20. And here's verse 1 in chapter 26. There was a famine in the land. Now the famine is going to be in the south because it's a desert. The Negev desert. There was a famine in the land, distinct from the earlier one that occurred in the days of Abraham. Now we're in chapter 26, and this is all about Isaac and Rebekah. Back in 20, Isaac wasn't born yet. Back in 20, it was his mama and his daddy. It was Abraham and Sarah. So as we read this, pay attention to this. There was a famine in the land, different, not the same one, distinct from the earlier one that had occurred in the days of Abraham. So Abraham had his story, Isaac's going to have his story, and they're going to be the same story. They started the same story, but now they're going to split, and we're going to see the split in them. And Isaac went down to King Abimelech. Now remember this king's name is Abimelech. In the king of the Philistines in Gerar. Gerar is the name of the city that they're going to be in. Now, keep it there and go to chapter 20 and look at the first verse. From there, Abraham journeyed onto the region of the Negev. That's the desert in the south, where he settled between Kadesh and Shur, while he resided in Gerar. That's the same place. He's in the same place Daddy is as the son is. He settled as an alien. Keep it there. Now, let's go back to chapter 26. And I'm going to go slow so that you can go from one to the other. Because this is so very interesting to see that it's 2 different stories. One from the north and one from the south. Back in chapter 26, we read this. Verse 2. The Lord appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt, but camp in the land where I tell you. When you see the word Lord, if you see Lord or Jehovah or Yahweh, it's going to be in the south. If you see God, it's going to be in the north. So let's look at that again. Verse 2. The Lord appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt, but to camp in this land wherever I tell you. Let's go back now to chapter 20. Just real quick, when you just look at that other Bible. Verse 2. Abraham said to his wife Sarah, she is my sister. She's my sister. So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. Who is this King Abimelech? It's the same King Abimelech that was with his daddy. Now, it's probably not the same same king. It's probably maybe not even a king named that. This is stories that they're telling. But they got, as this story, it has King Abimelech in Gerar. This one has King Abimelech in a jar. And this one in Gerar. And this one is going to say, she is my sister. So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. Now that's in chapter 20. He took Sarah because he said she's my sister. It's really his wife. But he's afraid. Go back now to chapter 26. We're just going to flip back and forth. Back to chapter 26. We read, the Lord appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt, but camp in this land wherever I tell you. Verse 3. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give you these lands in fulfillment of the oath that I swore to your father Abraham. That's what he swore to Abraham. Now he's swearing it to his son Isaac. And then we read this. I will make you descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. That's the same thing he said back there to Abraham. But it might have been sands on the shore, but it means countless. You can't count them. And I will give them these lands, and your descendants and all the nations of the earth will find a blessing. Now this is about Isaac. Verse 5 doesn't even belong in here. It's going to have something to do with Abraham. And it says this because Abraham obeyed me, keeping my commandments, my ordinances, and my instructions. That has nothing to do with the story about Isaac right now. So if we leave that out, we're going to go from 4 to 6. Now this is the redactor. He's putting these pieces in to where he's trying to make it into a story, even though it involves more than one story, a story from the north and the south. So if we go from 4 to 6, we read this. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give them all these lands, and your descendants, all these nations of the earth, will be a blessing. And 6 says, so Isaac settled in Gerar. That's what's supposed to follow right after verse 2. Verse 7 says, when the men of the place asked questions about his wife, he answered, now listen to this, she is my sister. That's exactly, go back to chapter 20 for just a moment. Flip back there. I know this is tedious, but it is going to be so interesting. Go back, here it says, she is my sister. Now go back to chapter 20 and look at verse 2. Abraham said of his wife Sarah, she is my sister. Same thing. This is the same, started out the same story, but it's being embellished in different ways. People in the north saw it one way. People in the south saw it another way. He was afraid that if he called her his wife, men of that place would kill him on account of Rebekah, since she was beautiful. Now, it doesn't say that Rebekah ever goes to the harem, but go back now to chapter 20, and we're going to see what happens to Rebekah in chapter 20. And let's look at verse 3. But God, now when you see God, that's from the north. And when you see dreams and you see God, it's going to be the north. So verse 3 says, but God came to Abraham in a dream one night and said to him, you're about to die because of the woman you have taken, for she has a husband. And Abimelech, who had not approached her, said, O Lord, would you kill an innocent man? Was he not the one who told me, she's my sister? She herself also stated, he's my brother. I acted with a pure heart and with clean hands. And God answered him in a dream. He's not going to have any dreams when you get into the south. God answered him in a dream. Yes, I know you did it with a pure heart. In fact, it was I who kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her. So if we go back now, let's see what is next in chapter 20. So now, God is just telling him, so now return the man's wife so that he may intercede for you. Now, because he's a prophet. A prophet can put a curse on somebody. So now, return the man's wife. Return Sarah to Abraham so that he may intercede for you, since he's a prophet, that you may live. He could take his life maybe. If you do not return her, you can be sure that you and all of yours will die. So early the next morning, Abimelech called all his servants and informed them of everything that had happened, and the men were filled with fear. I guess so. Now, let's go back to chapter 25, and we'll look at verse 7 again. We're going to read the same thing. When the men in the place asked questions about his wife, he answered, she's my sister. He was afraid that if he called her his wife, the men of the place would kill him on account of Rebekah, since she was beautiful. She was a beautiful. So he had to lie everywhere he went, I guess. Verse 8. But when they had been there for a long time, been there a good while, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out of a window and saw Isaac fondling his wife. He sees him out there with his wife, and now he knows. Now, he didn't get this in a dream. There's no dreams in this one. He either sees it or God tells him. So verse 9 says, this is in chapter 26, he called for Isaac and said, she must certainly be your wife. How could you have said she's my sister? Isaac replied, I thought I might lose my life on account of her. Same thing that we had back in chapter 20. It's going along pretty good. Pretty good. Some differences. And verse 10 says, how could you have done this to us? Exclaimed Abimelech. It would have taken very little for one of the people to lie with your wife, and so you would have brought guilt upon us. They would have been guilty of taking another man's wife. Verse 11, Abimelech then commanded all the people, anyone who maltreats this man or his wife shall be put to death. Now, why would they maltreat him? This is just the writer that's thinking as he's writing. And we go back now, turn back to chapter 20, and let's look at verse 10. What did you have in mind, Abimelech asked him, that you would do such a thing? Abimelech answered, I thought there would be no fear of God in this place, so they would kill me on account of my wife. Same thing. Besides, now this is something that's added. Besides, she really is my sister. Now, it doesn't say, this is going to appear again in another story, again, only this is the only place that it says, she really is my sister. So we don't know if he added that or if she really is. Besides, she really is my sister, but only my father's daughter, not my mother's. So she became my wife. And when God sent me wandering from my father's house, I asked her, would you do me this favor? In whatever place we come to say, he is my brother. Then Abimelech took flocks and herds and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and he restored his wife Sarah to him. And then Abimelech said, this is in chapter 20, verse 15. Then Abimelech said, here, my land is at your disposal. Settle wherever you please. So he's given him cattle. He's given him slaves. He's giving him all these different things. Now let's look and see what he does in chapter 26. He's not going to get any cattle in chapter 26. Let's go to verse 11. We read that for just a moment ago. Abimelech then, this is verse 11, chapter 26. Abimelech then commanded all the people, anyone who maltreats this man or his wife shall be put to death. Verse 12 says this, Isaac sowed a crop in that region and reaped 100-fold the same year, since the Lord blessed him. He got no cattle. He got nothing, just some land, which is good, especially since you've been the one that tricked him. He became richer and richer all the time until he was very wealthy. He acquired flocks and herds and a great workforce, and so the Philistines, they became envious of him. Now, this isn't the Philistine country. The place is named Gerar, but it's in the Philistines. But God blesses him. God, when these writers write for their heroes, they don't make them perfect people. They don't make them perfect. The Philistines had, okay, let's go back for just a moment now to back to your other Bible, back to verse 20. Then Abimelech said, Here is my land, is at your disposal. Settle wherever you please. To Sarah he said, I hereby give your brother 1,000 shekels of silver. This will preserve your honor before all those who are with you. Now, how was her honor soiled any? He didn't do anything. And then Abraham interceded with God, and God restored health to Abimelech and his wife. God had already punished them because he had taken that wife, and he didn't even know it was a wife. And the very last thing says, verse 17 in chapter 20, Abraham then interceded with God, and God restored health to Abimelech, to his wife, and his maidservants, so that they bore children. They weren't going to even have any children on account of, he didn't even touch her. Verse 18, so the Lord closed every womb in Abimelech's household on account of Abraham's wife, Sarah. Now that's the end of the chapter 20, and we're going to go ahead now with chapter 26, and we're going to be carrying going on, extending it. So let's look at verse 15. Now, remember, they're in the south, they're in the desert. There are two important things in the south: trees for shade and wells for water. So we're going to have a little battle about some water. Verse 15. The Philistines had stopped up and filled with dirt all the wells that his father's servants had dug back in the days of his father Abraham. Those wells were there even since that first story back there in chapter 20. And now they're plugging them up. They might be wondering, hey, this same thing happened to our parents. This happening to us. Telling that this man's wife is his sister. Verse 16, so Abimelech said to Isaac, Go away from us. You have become too numerous. I don't think it's just because they're too numerous. He wants him out of there because he's been deceived and he's been, no wives could have children. Get out of here. They don't want him. Verse 17. So Isaac left there. Now he's gone. So that's the end of the story with 20 and 26. 20 is from the north. It uses God. It uses dreams. 26 uses Lord. And it's not dreams, it's just God tells him. Verse 18. So we're with the wells. We're away from King Abimelech and Isaac for a while. Especially, we're not going back with them with the wife and sister deal anymore. Now it's going to be about wells. Isaac reopened the wells which his father's servants had dug back in the days of his father Abraham, and which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham's death. He gave them names like those that the father had given them. They named the wells like they're people or something. But when Isaac's servants dug in the Wadi. The Wadi is kind of like a swampland, and reached water in their well, the shepherds of Gerar argued. Now, these are the shepherds, they have to work. They've had to work to get all this stuff. And now here is a foreigner, and he gets this stuff given to him, and they're not real happy about that. So the shepherds of Gerar argued with Isaac's shepherds, saying, "The water belongs to us, not to you foreigners." So he named the well Esek, because they had quarreled there. So Esek means they quarreled. Verse 21. Then they dug another well, and they argued over that one too. So he named it Sitnah, which means second argument, must be. Verse 22. So he moved on from there, and he dug still another well. But over this one, they did not argue. I guess they finally given up. No need arguing with him. He's going to keep digging wells. He named it Rehoboth and said, because the Lord, now this is the Lord, it's in the south. The Lord has now given us ample room. We shall flourish in the land. So there must be quite a few of them, because they were there for a while, I guess. So there's several, because now we got ample room. From there, Isaac went to Beersheba. Beersheba is in the south. They're still in the south. The same night, the Lord appeared to him. Now he doesn't, not in a dream. And the Lord said, I am the God of Abraham, your father. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will bless you and multiply your descendants for the sake of Abraham, my servant. He's going to multiply those servants, those people, descendants, just like he told Abraham. Now he's telling Isaac. So Isaac built an altar there and invoked the Lord by name. After he had pitched his tent, Isaac's servants began to dig a well nearby. They can't get enough wells, I guess. But this is something interesting. He built an altar there and invoked the Lord by name. This is possibly the first time that they invoked the name of the Lord. It just means they prayed to God. Verse 26, here comes Abimelech again. Then Abimelech came to him from Gerar with Ahuzzath, his counselor, and Phicol, the general of his army. Isaac asked them, why have you come to me, since you hate me and have driven me away from you? I don't know why he would hate him, but I'm sure he'd be uncomfortable. He almost had his whole country messed up because that lie that he told him. And he says, why do you hate me? Verse 28, they answered, we clearly see that the Lord, there's the Lord again, this is the south, has been with you. So we thought, let there be a sworn agreement between you and our two sides, between you and us. Let us make a covenant with you. They want covenants. They want to make sure that everything is squared away, and that Isaac, come on, like a prophet, he cannot put a curse on them. You shall do no harm to us, just as we have not maltreated you. But you have always acted kindly. We have always acted kindly toward you, and have let you depart in peace. So now, may you be blessed by the Lord. Isaac then made a feast for them, and they ate and drank. We're going to find several times where they're going to make a covenant, and they always have a feast. Sitting down and eat together seals their bargain. Verse 31, early the next morning, they exchanged their oaths. And then Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed in peace. That same day, Isaac's servants came and informed him about the well that they had been digging, and they told him, we've reached water. He called it Shabbath, since the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. And Beersheba's in the south. Now we're going to jump. This has all been about Isaac, and it's from the south. It's the Lord. And God talks to him. If it had been the north, it would have been God, and it would have been in a dream. But now we're going to change to even a different writer. He's called a priest. And we know it's a priestly source when they start telling us how old people is. How old somebody is, that's a clue that it's from the north, that it's a priestly source. And we just have two more verses, and they're both from the priest, and it's this. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith. Now, this has nothing to do with what's been seen. This has all been about Isaac. Now, here's Esau coming in. It's just got two verses. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, the daughter of Beeri, the Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon, the Hiphite. But they became a source of bitterness to Isaac and Rebekah. They became a source of bitterness because he's not marrying somebody from the royal family. Really, he can't, because his mama was an Egyptian, Hagar. This is going to be an interesting verse in the future when we see this verse here tied in with something else that's going to become later. This chapter, 26, from the south, is the same story, started out the same story as chapter 20 from the north. But they embellished them in different ways. Chapter 20 finally finished, but 26 went on and they dug wells. And then last of all, we find about Esau. Remember Esau? He is the twin brother that's going to get shortchanged in everything by his brother that is godly but imperfect, because the heroes from these writers are kind of human. Have a wonderful day, and God bless you. I'll see you next week. And it's going to be fun next week, too.